Brother-in-law called me a loser while my wife secretly planned to take half of my company. But they don't know I already have the perfect revenge plan. She kissed my cheek and called me a good husband, just 3 days after secretly planning to take half my business. And guess what? I still poured wine at dinner like nothing was wrong. As I went into the garage to grab additional chairs for my wife's family dinner, I overheard her brother remark, "I still can't believe you married this loser. Dad's right, you need to divorce him before you have kids and get stuck forever." She responded, "Already working on it. My lawyer says we can take half his business too." With a flawless grin, I brought the chairs back and carried on hosting. After 3 days, I received 47 frantic messages pleading with me on WhatsApp. The week before her family dinner, there was something strange about Alexandra. Not in the typical sense, such as when she's upset about work or unhappy that I left my boots in the hallway once more. This was not like the others. She began taking calls in a different room, changed tabs anytime I walked behind her laptop, and continued checking her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. You have a sense of these things after 7 years together, such as the ability to recognize a wall isn't plumbed by its appearance. See, I never imagined that I would be penning one of these posts. I'm not the kind to post private details online, but it is 3 a.m., and I am sitting here, drinking a glass of whiskey, still shocked that my life had fallen apart in 3 days. You strangers on the internet are getting front row seats to the performance, and I have to get this out somewhere. Background: I'm James, and I'm 34 years old. I left community college and started my own construction company from the ground up. Began with a dilapidated truck and me alone. I currently have 5 teams working on projects all around the county. It's not much, but it covers the expenses and more. My wife of 7 years, Alexandra, is 32 years old. I helped her pay for law school. While I was starting my business, I paid my rent, tuition, and other expenses. The blue-collar man her daughter brought home was never particularly well liked by her upper-middle-class family. Elijah, her father, works as a financial advisor of some sort. Pamela, her mother, works in real estate. Thomas, her brother, believes he is God's gift to capitalism because of his business degree. The thing is this. I was always aware that they believed she could perform better. Side remarks concerning my little business, such as when I would return to school, continued unabated. However, I believed Alexandra always stood up for me. In order to show off our house to her relatives, Alexandra insisted on having the yearly spring supper last Saturday. I helped with the cooking, pressure washed the deck, and prepared the yard in the morning. For her family, everything had to be ideal. I had been up since 6, preparing the smoker for the brisket that I had spent the whole week dry aging. Alexandra was more irritable than normal and would lash out at me over little matters. However, I attributed it to the typical tension of family dinners. Her parents, brother Thomas and his wife, and younger sister Magnolia, who is still in graduate school, all showed up at 4 o'clock. While Alexandra's father asked sharp questions about how business was doing, in a tone that suggested he was waiting for me to declare failure, Alexandra's mother immediately began criticizing the arrangement of the furnishings in the living room. We were ready to eat at 6 o'clock. We needed 2 more chairs from the garage, so I arranged the dining table with our nice plates, the ones we got as wedding presents and hardly use. I heard voices coming from around the corner of the house as I was leaving through the side entrance. Alexandra and Thomas had a smoke while standing among the azaleas. Which, given that she allegedly quit 3 years ago, was strange. I heard my name just as I was ready to shout. I went cold. She married this, Thomas said, and their father was right. She needed to obtain a divorce from me before having children and becoming stuck for good. The next thing Alexandra said was like being struck in the chest by a sledgehammer. Her lawyer stated they could also seize half of my business, and she was already working on it. As they chuckled about how I had no idea what was going to happen, I stood there, utterly paralyzed. They continued talking about how she had squandered her best years with me while I was playing construction, and that someone named Dominic was a much better fit for her. Have you ever experienced a sudden change in reality? 7 years of marriage. The many late evenings I spent assisting her with her exam preparation. She was able to purchase law texts by skipping our holidays. I took on extra work to pay off her education loans. In the glaring light of what I had just heard, everything appeared abruptly different. I didn't yell though, avoided going up against them. I felt a chill go through me. I took 3 heavy breaths, backed away silently, got 2 folding chairs out of the garage, and put on the most phony smile I've ever had. I saw a reflection of myself in the hallway mirror as I made my way back inside. I appeared very natural. Nuclear wasteland is inside. The remainder of that meal was bizarre. I watched my wife, this stranger across the table, behave like nothing was wrong while I poured wine, cut the brisket, and smiled at her dad's awful jokes. In an attempt to identify the woman I married, I examined her face. Was I seeing it now, or had she always regarded me with that barely disguised disdain? I almost broke down when her mother asked for my secret recipe after praising the cuisine. After 7 years of family dinners, she thinks I might know something important? My thoughts screamed as I mechanically described the dry aging process. Magnolia, her sister, once gave me a strange expression as if she was trying to figure something out. In that family, she has always been the lone good person. If she knew, I wonder. Following dessert, Thomas celebrated with a toast to family and future changes, grinning smugly at Alexandra. I thought about how satisfying it would be to smash that crystal stem over his face as I drank and clinked glasses. Around 11 o'clock, they eventually left, and Alexandra began tidying everything while humming to herself. Humming. As if she hadn't just ruined our whole existence. I advised her to get some sleep and that I would wash the dishes. She said, "I'm such a good husband," and kissed my cheek. I almost puked at the boldness. I checked her laptop after she had gone to bed. Password protected. I knew she used the same pattern, but it was fresh to her. I was in for the third time. 3 months ago, she began sending emails to her lawyer. After she got a partnership at her firm, the goal was to file, use my money to support her status, and then divorce me after she locked it in. Spreadsheets detailing our accounts, my company's assets, and even a divorce timeline were included. She had been transferring tiny amounts to a different account for months, just below the thresholds that would cause notifications, according to the transfer record that was there. Astute attorney. Astute. I looked at our combined savings. $20,000 are missing. The funds I had been setting up for our future and business growth. It turned out that Dominic wasn't just a better fit, he was already test driving my replacement, when I discovered the texts with someone saved as D. They were 6 months worth of texts. 6 months. Neither that night nor the following, I slept. On Monday, for the first time in 3 years, I called in ill to work, and while Alexandra was at work, I had a consultation with a divorce lawyer. Mike is a guy that a friend suggested. Told him everything, presented the screenshots I had taken to him. Mike was straightforward. She may possibly receive half of the worth of my business in our state because it increased significantly during our marriage, despite the fact that she did nothing to assist. Even if I helped her through school and created it from nothing. I nearly passed out when he revealed the possible settlement sum. Everything I had worked so hard to achieve and everything I had given up was sliced in two and given to the woman who was going to surprise me. So what, I just bend over and take it? I recall asking Mike. I was already mentally gone when he began discussing friendly settlements and limiting harm. There was a fundamental change within me. Alexandra inquired about my well-being that evening. Brought soup home. Showed concern. I went along with it, claiming that I was simply exhausted and perhaps suffering from a sickness. She advised me to consult a physician. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. I told her I loved her, nodded, and thanked her for caring. She responded without hesitation, uttering those 3 meaningless words as she prepared to carry out my financial plan. As we sat on the couch, I watched her browse Instagram, pausing to like a picture of her and me from Christmas last year that her sister had shared. Couple goals, was the caption, and I almost burst out laughing. Living with a stranger who was dressed as my wife was like that. Every action and every phrase seemed premeditated. Has she been this way all along? Had she changed, or had I been blind for 7 years? Does it really make a difference? The truth is, I have never thought of myself as a vengeful man. I normally just break off contact and move on when contractors try to take advantage of me. I assist clients who fail to make their payments on time. However, this was unique. It wasn't business. My life was like this. Something hardened inside me as I lay awake that second night, seeing her sleep soundly next to me, most likely dreaming about spending my money with Dominic. I've never felt such clarity. You know, I was always undervalued by Alexandra and her family. They thought I was simple because of my calloused hands and lack of education. They never realized that it takes patience, strategy, and knowledge to create anything from nothing. The following morning, I began calling my bank, then my business partner, and finally a few important clients. I had a scheme in the works by lunchtime. I knew exactly what I was going to do by dinner time. Does Alexandra want war? All right. However, she is attending a chainsaw battle with a butter knife. Money is no longer the issue here. Showing her and her whole family who they chose to fikikias with is the goal. They are going to receive a masterclass in consequences from the loser they have denigrated for 7 years. 3 days after that supper, I'm now finishing up my demolition blueprint. Additionally, like with any successful construction job, Planning is necessary before beginning any building. Everything is different tomorrow. Alexandra believes she has everything figured out. But she doesn't know what's going to happen. Her family doesn't either. Or Dominic. Who the devil is he? For 7 years, I encouraged her to pursue her aspirations. I can now see hers go apart in real time. Update. First of all, I want to thank everyone who supported my previous post. I never anticipated such a reaction. For those who want to know if I've relaxed or if my thoughts are clearer now, the answer is no. I'm still angry. Still going forward. Now, just more strategically. You see, building something by hand teaches you that hurrying only leads to issues that you will have to deal with later. It's the same with revenge. It requires a suitable base. Like any other day, Alexandra departed for work the morning after I blogged. Gave me a farewell kiss, reminded me to contact the plumber regarding the guest bathroom's leaking faucet. Requested that I come get her dry cleaning. Like witnessing someone sleepwalk across a minefield they planted themselves, the complete normalcy of it was unreal. I started working as soon as her car left the driveway. Securing my real business was the first thing I had to do. For an urgent meeting at the coffee shop across the street from my workplace, I called my accountant. I couldn't do this on the phone or at work, where coworkers could overhear. The problem is that you have to make concessions when you're starting a business and helping someone with their education. Had even assisted us with some of our initial tax returns when we lacked the funds for a qualified accountant. The meeting at the coffee shop opened my eyes. It appeared as though my accountant, Frank, had not slept for days. As it happens, Alexandra had already gotten in touch with him and asked him naive questions concerning ownership documents and business appraisal techniques. She said she was helping me get ready for a meeting with a possible investor. Unaware of what was going on, Frank had provided her with some cursory information but felt uneasy enough to flag it. His face lost color when I explained what was actually happening. Then he took out his tablet and said, "James, I need to show you something." He produced a stack of papers that detailed my business dealings over the last 3 years. These highlighted ones, and they don't quite add up. It turns out that Alexandra had been involved in more than just divorce preparations. To give the impression that I was mismanaging company funds, she had been fabricating a paper trail. Minor date inconsistencies, oddly timed sums transferred between accounts, and inconsistently numbered invoices. It was enough to make things appear sloppy in divorce court, but nothing illegal. She was too intelligent for that. Sufficient to warrant hiring a forensic accountant, who would charge me thousands of dollars and discover nothing amiss, but would cause the process to drag on for months. It took Frank and I 3 hours to carefully document everything, establishing transparent records that demonstrate the legitimacy of every transaction. We paid off equipment loans early, expedited supplier payments, and recorded Alexandra's total disengagement from the company's operations. Alexandra's sister Magnolia texted me while we were working. This was not like the norm. Although we rarely text directly, we have always been amicable. She wanted to know whether we could have coffee soon. Claimed that she had an important topic to discuss. Inquiring as to why, I consented on Saturday morning. The bank is the next destination. During that dinner, Alexandra's brother made a remark about their parents assisting her when the time comes. I had been thinking about it ever since. Additionally, in construction, intuition frequently saves the day. I talked to our financial advisor at the bank. Verified my suspicions. 2 weeks prior, Alexandra had applied for a home equity line of credit secured by our house. Because I used my pre-marriage savings to make the down payment, the house is mostly in my name. I personally renovated the house, increasing its value by almost $100,000. The document was going through the system, but I was still labeled as a needed signatory. She would have had access to roughly $200,000 in cash in another week, which I would have to repay in part. The advisor was uneasy when I clarified that I had not given my approval. I was able to withdraw the application after presenting my ID and marriage license. Then I transferred precisely the amount I had contributed, half of our shared savings, to my own account. Is that petty? Perhaps. However, it's far less than what she had intended to take. I'm not proud of what I did when I came home. But times of desperation, etc. I put little recording devices in our bedroom and living room. It is entirely lawful in our state because it is also my home, but it is unethical. Additionally, I positioned a camera in our home office at an angle that faces her desk. Then, as if nothing were amiss, I took the dog for a stroll around the neighborhood. While casually contemplating the total breakdown of my marriage, I waved to the neighbors, threw a ball for the Jenkins child, and used a small plastic bag to pick up some dog poop. Typical Tuesday fare. Alexandra appeared preoccupied throughout dinner that evening, looking at her phone nonstop. She offered me evasive replies when I asked about her day. Then I saw her name, Dominic, on her phone as it chimed once again. I reached for more pasta and inquired in a casual tone, "Who's Dominic?" The fork hesitated for a few while before reaching her mouth. She placed her phone face down on the table and said, "Oh, new client at the firm. Time-sensitive case." I could tell everything from that little hesitation. I continued to play Mr. Relaxed Husband and remarked, "It must be important if he's texting you during dinner." She smiled tightly at me. "You know how it is. Some people don't respect boundaries." I nearly choked on my garlic bread because of the irony. She mentioned she had some work to do after dinner and vanished into the home office. I made enough noise while cleaning the kitchen to give her the impression that I was occupied. Then slipped quietly to the corridor via the office door, which she had left slightly open. Her voice was low and personal, and I could hear it. Not the voice of her client. Not her family talking voice, her voice from the bedroom. "Can't just call whenever you want. No, he doesn't suspect anything, just be patient. Yes, I miss you too." I still felt something for her, but every word was a nail in the coffin. I was on the verge of losing the anger I had been suppressing. I would have destroyed everything if I had rushed through that door, confronted her, and put an end to this charade immediately. So I turned to leave. "Let's go back to the kitchen." Switched the faucet on. While preparing my next move, I pretended to wash more dishes. The issue about constructing is that timing is crucial. Concrete will not set properly if it is poured too soon after rain. Rushing the frame comprises the entire structure. It took months for this retaliation to fully heal. I unintentionally left my printed divorce papers out on my bedside table on Wednesday morning. Only the typical forms from the county website were completed. They were a little displaced when I returned from my shower. She had examined them. However, she remained silent. I didn't either. I started preparing quietly at work. Contacted clients who owed me favors. For information, not money. As it happens, Dominic wasn't just a stranger. Thomas, Alexandra's brother, was good friends with him. Together, they attended college. He was the type of man her parents had always desired for her, and he came from a similar socioeconomic background. The intriguing part is that Dominic had attended a number of family gatherings that I had missed over the years due to professional obligations, including birthday celebrations, a ski vacation, and even a cruise that I was unable to attend because I was completing a significant project. The undertaking that genuinely launched my company. I found out that Dominic and Alexandra had dated briefly in college prior to our meeting through a mutual acquaintance. Everything was coming together. This was a long game, not simply an affair. As I investigated all of this, I also made a thorough spreadsheet that listed all of the money I had spent on Alexandra's education. Rent, books, tuition, the laptop I got her for graduation, the course to prepare for the bar test, the interview outfits, and the several Ubers home from late study sessions since I didn't want her using public transportation after dark. The sum came to $43,600, excluding the interest I could have received if I had used that money to fund my company instead. For the first time in months, Alexandra started having sex that evening. The timing almost made me giggle. Did she also have this in mind? Keep me happy and distracted while she planned the execution of my financial plan? As she played out passion, I followed along, acting as I should have, and feeling nothing but disinterest. After that, I sat in the dark and stared at the ceiling fan while she slept, counting rotations rather than sheep. How long had our marriage been a lie? Was the one question that kept coming to me. Did she always see it as a transaction? Did I only serve as a stepping stone? I met Magnolia for coffee on Thursday morning. I got there early and waited while browsing Reddit on my phone. You strangers on the internet continued to offer assistance. I would never consider some of the harsher tactics that were offered. Others told stories that were so similar to mine that they seemed mild in contrast. In some way, the solidarity was helpful. Magnolia showed up looking anxious. Being more sincere and less preoccupied with looks, she has always been the odd one out in that family. As she picked at a muffin and engaged in small chat, she ordered a complex coffee drink. At last, she inhaled deeply. Her next statement reaffirmed everything. For months, she had been aware of Alexandra and Dominic. During the family weekend I missed due to a water damage incident at a job site, I managed to catch them all together at their parents' lake cottage. Alexandra, whom she had challenged, insisted it was an isolated incident, but it wasn't. Recently, during a family meal that I had also missed, Alexandra had confided in Magnolia while intoxicated. I explained the entire strategy to her. Stay with me until we became partners, then exchange half of my assets for Dominic, which would be her golden parachute. Magnolia told me this because she was at her breaking point. Claimed to have liked me always. Believed that I was beneficial to her sister. I couldn't comprehend why I was never given a fair chance by her family. Not wanting to give away that I already knew the majority of this, I thanked her for being honest. Asked her not to talk to anyone else. She seemed relieved to get rid of the weight, and she agreed. She gave me a hug and apologized in a whisper as she walked away. For the first time in days, I felt a true human connection. I started the second phase on Thursday night. Made up a fictitious business emergency. Said I needed everyone on deck for a crisis meeting the following evening when I called Alexandra. A significant client is threatening to withdraw. Possible financial catastrophe. Needed her help, and the counsel of her family. She paused. Claimed to have plans. I exerted more effort. Permit my voice to falter a bit. Claimed that I was afraid of losing everything we had created. Took advantage of her guilt. She gave in. Decided to have a last-minute family supper on Friday. Said she would give Thomas and her parents a call. Excellent. I made the last adjustments to my preparations on Friday morning. Prepare the dining area by placing printouts in a folder next to my chair. Loaded every piece of evidence, including financial records, videos, and screenshots, onto a tablet. She picked up her favorite dessert from her favorite patisserie across town. I made sure everything was in order at work. I had an open discussion with my business partner, who was very supportive despite being understandably astonished. Our friendship dates back to high school. He was aware of the several ways in which Alexandra's education had cost me. Alexandra was already at home when I arrived, rearranging our nice plates on the table. I didn't miss the symmetry. Another meal with the family. Same face. A whole different play is going to start. She appeared uneasy and was always looking at her phone. She gave me a preoccupied nod when I inquired whether everyone was confirmed for dinner. Said that wine was being brought by her folks. There would also be Thomas and his spouse. I also proposed inviting Magnolia. As I watched, Alexandra texted her sister, looking astonished but agreeing. Everyone in the gang would be present. Excellent. Alexandra called me to ask what the client issue was particularly so she could prepare her ideas as I went upstairs to take a shower and change. I promised to fill her in on everything over supper. Wanted to experience it once, under the shower water, with everyone in attendance. For maximum impact, I practiced my speech, the order in which I would reveal the information, and how I would present the proof. Planning a presentation for the most significant client meeting ever felt unreal. Alexandra had always told me that wearing dark trousers, a blue button-down shirt, and leather shoes rather than work boots would make me look the most professional, so I did just that. The outfit for my last act as her devoted husband. I could hear her talking quietly on the phone below. I could review that chat later if necessary because of the recording in the living room. However, I already knew to whom she was speaking. Her words were already familiar to me. Give her one last chance to believe she is in charge. Allow her to tell Dominic that everything is proceeding as planned. Let her think she's the wisest person in the room for these last few hours. The doorbell rang. Alexandra abruptly hung up the phone. Her parents were the first to arrive, and as promised, her father brought a pricey bottle of wine. He asked about this business emergency, with hardly disguised glee in his voice as he shook my hand with that same patronizing hold. Next to arrive were Thomas and his spouse, then Magnolia, who was unable to look me in the eye. The whole gang was present, every player in the game. Alexandra touched my arm and inquired about my well-being as we made our way to the dining room. For a moment, I nearly questioned everything because the worry in her voice sounded so real. I nearly questioned whether I had made up a complex conspiracy theory based on miscommunications and coincidences. Her phone buzzed in her pocket after that. Before she swiftly hushed it, I saw Dominic's name appear on the screen, and any remaining doubt vanished. With the evidence folder next to my plate, I sat down at the head of the table. Her father sat on my left, and Alexandra to my right. Like the dinner where I learned of her deception, the symmetry was flawless. I was the one with secrets now, though. I noticed Magnolia observing me with an odd look that was a mix of fear and interest as Alexandra's mother inquired about the wine option. Something was approaching, but she wasn't sure what it was. Everyone grew silent as I stood up, holding a glass of wine, anticipating that I would explain the business emergency. I saved Alexandra for last and grinned at each of them in turn. I'd like to make a toast before we discuss why I called this meeting, I remarked, lifting my glass. To relatives? To allegiance. And at last being able to see things clearly. Their expressions of bewilderment were only the start. Neither Alexandra nor they knew what was going to happen next. Last update. For the past hour, I've been glued to my phone, watching the message counter rise. In less than 3 days, Alexandra sent 47 texts. More desperate than the others. You see, I told you what happened at that dinner, and it was very crazy. I simply lifted my glass in celebration of loyalty, family, and at last having a clear perspective. The look of bewilderment on everyone's faces was invaluable. Calmly, I took a seat and sipped Elijah's pricey wine. Now, regarding the business emergency that I mentioned. Alexandra gave me a supportive touch on the hand. I nearly had to respect her dedication because of the way she performed it. I went on, taking out my tablet. I found some major issues that put everything I've built at risk. Issues that are arising directly in front of me. Elijah leaned forward, his smugness scarcely restrained. Money problems? Issues with cash flow? Your business approach always looked risky to me. The issue isn't with my business, I responded, plugging my tablet into our TV. It has to do with my spouse. There was silence in the room. On my hand, Alexandra's froze. She said, James, what are you doing? The problem is this. When tearing down a building, you don't begin with the roof. You start by undermining the basis. The sound of Alexandra and Thomas's voices from the last dinner filled the room as I played the recording. Thomas claimed that before she had children and became permanently stuck, she needed to get a divorce from me. In response, Alexandra stated she was already working on it and that her lawyers suggested they could also seize half of my company. I observed every face at the table. Thomas turned pallid. The mother of Alexandra covered her mouth. Elijah tightened his jaw. Magnolia closed her eyes as if she were witnessing an impending car accident. And as her meticulously planned strategy fell apart, Alexandra simply sat there, immobilized. I then displayed screen grabs of her conversations with Dominic. Edited with care, but damning nonetheless. 6 months, I muttered. You've been seeing him for 6 months, and I've been working 60-hour weeks. I looked at her parents. Were you aware that she was unfaithful, or simply that she intended to get a divorce from me? I wasn't finished when Elijah attempted to interrupt. To access my spreadsheet, I swiped. All of the money I had spent on Alexandra's education, $143,600. I added, I built my business from nothing, and this is what I invested in our future. The following page shows the canceled home equity application and documentation of her secret bank account. And she intended to thank me in this way. The quiet was overwhelming. Then, nearly at the same time, 3 things occurred. Elijah knocked his chair back and got to his feet. This is absurd? We're heading out, Alexandra? Alexandra took hold of my arm. I can explain, James, please? Additionally, coward Thomas attempted to remove messages beneath the table. I gestured to him. I already have the mails you're deleting, every time you assisted her in organizing this. After he froze, Thomas turned to face his wife, who was staring at him with a startled gaze. Alexandra changed her strategy. With tears in her eyes, she remarked, it wasn't like that. I couldn't understand. Not happy? For years, we had been drifting apart. Decomposing, I repeated. When I was funding your schooling? While I was creating our future? Something snapped, even though I hadn't intended to lose my temper. I lowered my voice and whispered. 7 years. I had faith in us for 7 years. And I was only a stepping stone the entire time. Her dad took over. Any issues you two are having are private. But you're wrong if you believe that this ambush will scare my daughter. You cannot fathom the resources we possess. I chuckled. Resources? Do you mean the $20,000 she took from our joint account? Or the HELOC she attempted to obtain against my residence? I saw Alexandra texting beneath the table while Elijah was ranting about everything they had done for us. That's when I revealed the last secret. Did Alexandra mention that Dominic is also married? I remarked nonchalantly. The room became silent. Elijah paused in the middle of his sentence. Yeah, found that out yesterday. His wife's name is Rachel, very understanding when I showed her the text between her husband and my wife. Alexandra's face became pale. You, what? Yesterday, we had coffee. It seemed only right that she should be aware. Elijah lost it at that point. I took hold of the edge of my hand-built dining table and turned it over. Everything flew, dishes, wine, and food. Alexandra let out a scream. Her mom let out a gasp. Thomas leaped back. Sitting there, strangely at ease, I watched as 7 years of pretense fell apart all around us. Only Magnolia moved to assist with cleanup. She offered me a slight nod of respect, realizing that I couldn't tell, as our gazes locked across the chaos. With trembling fingers, Elijah gestured toward me. You think you've won? You're nothing. You build things with your hands because you weren't smart enough for college. My daughter made a mistake slumming with you. But we'll fix it. Slowly, I got to my feet. I may work with my hands, Elijah, but at least I built something real. What have you built, besides a family of liars? He sprang at me. Genuinely attempted to punch someone. He hurled threats about lawyers, but Thomas only managed to stop him. James, please, let's talk privately. Alexandra insisted. I didn't want it this way. How did you intend to end our marriage? To steal half of what I created while someone else I gave a headshake. There is nothing to discuss. I opened the front door. I think it's time for you all to go. Thomas pulled his dad outside. The last to depart, Magnolia stopped at the door. I apologize, she muttered. You always deserve better, in my opinion. Then our ruined dining room was empty but for Alexandra and me. Where are you heading? Her voice was small as she requested. I said, I have a hotel room already. When you're at work tomorrow, I'll return to get my belongings. You orchestrated everything, she muttered. I grabbed my already packed overnight bag and responded, I learned from the best. You'll regret this, she called after me as I left. When it came to the lawyers, my father wasn't playing a game. I didn't answer. Rebuilding on certain foundations is impossible due to their deterioration. I slept better that night at the hotel than I have in months. Alexandra was at work the following day, so I returned. I left my key on the counter and packed the essentials: clothes, tools, pictures of my family, and my dog's belongings. I had previously rented a modest flat close to my workshop. Just making room, not hiding. I informed my staff over the phone that I would be working remotely to handle personal things. I avoided social media for 2 days, ignored emails, and concentrated on organizing my new space. The dog rapidly adapted. Animals are able to detect problems in a home. I eventually turned my phone back on the third morning. It buzzed right away. 47 WhatsApp messages from Alexandra, ranging from begging to angry. The first 2 were all caps Rudge. You've ruined everything, and how dare you embarrass me like that? Then they moved. Call me, James, please. I know I made a mistake, but we can work through this, and we need to talk. She was negotiating by message 30. I'll attend therapy. I'll cut my family off. Please just speak with me. Message 45 was straightforward. I apologize. At 3:14 a.m., the last 2 arrived. I told Dominic everything, even the preparations for the divorce and the money. We should remain together, he says. Then, he simply called to end the relationship. Claimed to be attempting to keep his marriage to Rachel intact. Now I have no one. I felt nothing but fatigue as I read through them without replying. Not contentment, not confirmation. Simply a sense of emptiness, similar to doing a challenging task and knowing the client will never value it. I was scrolling when another message appeared. I'm sure you've read these, James. Tell me what you want, please. Cash? The home? Whatever you want, I'll sign. She still didn't understand after all. Money was never the issue here. It had to do with treachery. A waste of years. Stolen trust. At last, I answered. The divorce documents have already been forwarded to your office. I just want this to end as soon as possible. She responded right away. Can we get together? Just to talk, please. My phone rang before I could reply. My lawyer, Mike. After I showed her the proof, Dominic's wife, Rachel, contacted him. After conducting her own research, she found that Dominic had engaged in similar plots with other women. For our divorce processes, she wanted to compare the notes. I glanced around my small apartment as Mike was speaking. A mattress on the ground. Unpacked boxes. The dog is patiently observing me. Starting afresh at 34 was not how I had envisioned my life to go. However, there are instances when repairing a weakened foundation requires tearing everything down. I consented to have coffee with Rachel. Not in a romantic sense, but rather because shared betrayal fosters unity. I hung up the phone and sent Alexandra one last message. There is nothing to discuss. The union is over. Please use our lawyers for all future correspondence. I blocked her number after that. I went trekking with the dog that afternoon. Magnolia texted me, and my phone buzzed. I heard you left. Our folks are hosting Alexandra. Mom is finally questioning what actually happened, but Dad is on the warpath. Believe that his facade of being a perfect daughter is crumbling. Thanks for letting me know, I said. I hope everything is going well for you. She said. I am. Actually, better than okay. I finally informed them that I was leaving the program they had selected so that I could pursue my true interests. I suppose your bravery was infectious. I observed my dog exploring as the sun went down, carelessly waving his tail. It's been 7 years. Hours and hours. Work. A planned and ruined future. Freedom too. The truth. An opportunity to restore something real. It buzzed on my phone. With a link to a support group for those coping with divorces including financial deceit, Rachel confirmed our coffee date. It seems to be more prevalent than I had thought. I put my phone in my pocket and dialed the dog. It's time to return. Prepare dinner? Unpack perhaps. Little steps. One day at a time. The foundation is the initial step in any successful construction project. And I'm making sure it's sturdy this time. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.